Today, I'd like to talk about the Project Veritas sting that yielded a sort of reverse victim, if you will, uh, in the cancel culture struggle. That is to say, here we find somebody canceled for expressing his views uh, because his views are so abhorrent, yet they are views that one wonders, uh, I wonder anyway, if they might just not be quite common, in fact, amongst a broad swath of the ruling demographic. So, just to talk a little bit about what happened, and I'll include the link here so you can see it for yourself. Project Veritas, as you probably know, operates in such a manner that they have one of their agents go out and sort of sweet talk somebody within the media, get him off his guard in some, you know, like in a restaurant setting or some casual, seemingly casual conversation that they're actually recording, and the agent pretends to be one of them and pretends to agree with him and pretends to value the same things that he values, and so he wins his trust and gets him comfortable, and then the guy or the gal, whoever it is, starts talking more with more candor, uh, and that's what happened here. But here it was particularly shocking in the case of Michael Beller, who was some kind of attorney for PBS before he was fired by PBS uh, after this expose came out. So let me just read a bit of this article. Hidden camera footage of PBS executive Michael Beller, in which he appears to wax poetic about deprogramming Trump supporters' kids and celebrates their parents' death from COVID-19, has apparently gotten him fired. Speaking to an undercover reporter for conservative muckraking outfit Project Veritas, Beller appeared to boast that, quote, even if Biden wins, we go for all the Republican voters, and Homeland Security will take their children away. We'll put them into re-education camps, he continued, suggesting this was necessary because kids who are growing up knowing nothing but Trump would take after their Trump-supporting parents and presumably become pint-sized bigots. They'll be raising a generation of intolerant, horrible people, horrible kids. And he also said that Trump is pretty much just like Hitler, uh, and so that necessitated taking a step like this. He talks about taking their kids away and sending them to what he called enlightenment camps. They're nice, these enlightenment camps. They have Sesame Street characters in the classrooms, and they watch PBS all day. Beller, this attorney with PBS, also sounded genuinely delighted when discussing a surge of COVID-19 cases in Middle America, and venting his spleen on, quote, stupid Americans living outside cities like Washington, D.C. What's great is that COVID is spiking in all the red states now, he said, explaining that either those people won't come out to vote for Trump or a lot of them are sick and dying. So what I think is interesting about this, is this more or less turns the tables on the sort of mentality that thinks, well, if you scratch this conservative white person, uh, from a red state, particularly from the South, you'll see he's a racist, sexist, homophobic bigot. Um, and yet he just pretends not to be these things. But if the idea is you catch someone like that off his guard and get him talking, and he'll say what he really thinks. And this has sort of been the way of thinking of the left and the culture of critique, if you will, of middle American types, and little Englanders. And there's in England there's an equivalent for other nations as well. Just the conservative, family oriented, church going types that they seem so nice, but you scratch the surface and you see that they're really hateful bigots. What's interesting about this expose is that it turns that whole notion on its head, and it critiques the critiquer. It takes a look at this guy who I think is, a representative member of his demographic, and in this expose, this conversation, he gets led into saying all of these things that are completely outrageous, and yet if you watch the interview, I know some people might say, oh well, he was just kidding. If you watch the I want to say interview, it's not really an interview, it's a conversation. If you watch the conversation in the link, which I will provide, he's not saying it in a joking way. This guy is not joking. Now, my feeling is that a lot of the people who live in the kind of neighborhoods that like the kind of neighborhood that I visited last week in Atlanta, or a couple weeks ago when I was in Atlanta, this immaculate upper middle class neighborhood, predominantly white, very liberal neighborhood with all the virtue signaling road signs, lawn signs, and bumper stickers everywhere. I think that one can speculate, at least, that this kind of rhetoric really resonates among people like this. If you get these kind of people together, that and you have them talk frankly to one another, this they bring up this idea of re-education camps, and then some of them might say, oh well, we can't really do that, I guess. But on the other hand, think about these kids. Think about how they're being raised. Think of all of the awfulness they're being taught by their awful parents who voted for Donald Trump, by their awful parents who homeschool, by their awful parents who are conservative Christians. We've got to find a way to re-educate these kids, to indoctrinate. They wouldn't say indoctrinate; they would say to enlighten them, and that's exactly what Heller calls it here. Well, first he calls them re-education camps, and then he calls them enlightenment camps. And again, if you doubt me, if you think that this is much ado about nothing, that this was just an innocent conversation where the rhetoric got a little out of hand, but it was all meant in jest, I invite you to watch the video and see if you really think that after watching the video. There's nothing in his behavior that would give that impression. Now, I think that most of the Druid Hills living Paideia school attending Paideia School is where I went for the last 2 years of my high school, and that's where John Ossoff, incoming Georgia senator, also went, as I explained in a prior video when I was in Atlanta. Do I think most of them would say we've got to have re-education camps or enlightenment camps? We got to take these children away from their awful Trump supporting parents and have enlightenment camps. I mean, I think they would say, well, I guess we can't really do that. But they would also say, I'm sure they would also say, we need to reach these kids and enlighten them and show them there's a wider world out there beyond the stifling and repressive strictures that they've been indoctrinated with. They would frame it as indoctrination by their parents that they need to be freed from. Of that, I am absolutely sure. And I am just about as certain that it would not apply in the inverse. If you talk to somebody who was a Trump supporter and he was talking about the kids of liberal parents, liberal left parents, the typical Trump supporter wouldn't say we've got to take these kids away from their parents and send them to re-education camps, enlightenment camps. He would say no such thing. He would just say, leave me alone, leave me and my kids alone. Let me raise my kids in accord with my values, and stop trying to undermine me as a parent. So again, we see this, and that's the thing that I find the most interesting, really fascinating about this story, because again, yes, it's an outrage. Yes, we're living in an outrage culture, which isn't all that healthy. But if it was just another outrage, just another example of people on the left or representing the cultural establishment being awful people, then I wouldn't think there was so much value in reflecting on it here. But what I think makes it interesting is, again, that it turns the spotlight on the critiquers, the would-be culture of critique, and exposes them for who they really are in the person of this one guy, this Michael Heller. Now, PBS has fired him. PBS has said since this happened, there's no place for hateful rhetoric here at PBS. But really, he was working among them. He was. I mean, there's been some debate about whether he was a high-level person or not, but high-level or mid-level, he was speaking their language, and he was with somebody else who was pretending to speak their language, and he was feeling comfortable, and he was saying what he thought, and he didn't figure that it would be something that this person who was talking to him, who was pretending to be one of somebody who was on his side. It wasn't like he was saying, I know this might be controversial, and maybe this is going a little too far, but he just put it right out there. So this guy, I'm going to argue, is representative of his demographic, of his class, of the sort of people among whom he dwells and with whom he congregates and associates. So the culture of critique gets critiqued pretty hard, and it's a pretty glorious thing. Thank you, Project Veritas. My name's Andy Nowicki, altrightnovelist.com.